Hello and welcome back to another episode of We Are Meant for More. Today I have the pleasure and the honor of sharing with you Stacey Paige. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm really excited for this. Your message and your mission just resonates with me so much. And in the spirit of the podcast, We Are Meant for More. Your story couldn't be more applicable. So if it's okay with you, I was going to introduce you right from your bio because it's so good and it really hits the nail on the head as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
All right. So Stacy is a former New York City event planner to the elite turned spiritual life coach and yoga instructor. So big change there.
Yeah.
She believes that we are architects of our own life, and it is up to us to design our life in a way that we truly want. Your approach combines wisdom, the wisdom of the spiritual law, with practical, actionable steps to help your clients live in alignment with their highest potential. I'm really excited for this. And there's so much more here that I know we're going to dive into along the way. But Stacey, tell us about you and walk us through, in the spirit of the podcast. You're an event planner to the elite, and walk us through how that all changed.
Yeah. So I've had a couple of big moments where everything changed. Seemingly at the time, not for the better, but in retrospect, as I was walking through the journey, absolutely aligning me with the fact that I was and am meant for more. So the first was when I was the event planner in New York City, high end clientele. And I was amazing at my job and I was amazing at bringing their dreams and their vision to life. But it absolutely was sucking me dry. And I would love to say that I recognized that and walked away and walked towards something that my heart was pulling me to. But at that time, I didn't even honestly realize I did things from my head. I I I got into business. I was successful at it. I was good at it. I was making money at it, and I really thought that was what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have these jobs and these careers. Excuse me. And it was entrepreneurial. So I was working 80, 90, 100 plus hours a week. And I remember going to bed one night and I had a really, really, really bad headache. And I went to bed, I didn't pay attention. The next morning, I woke up with that same headache and I literally could not move my body. I mean, I went to lift my head up and it was just my body would collapse down. It was the dizziness, the weakness. So that put me on a journey of, people having to come and get me to doctors because I literally couldn't move. I mean, if I had to even use the restroom, go to the bathroom, I was crawling on the floor and resting in between. So I went through months of testing, bone marrow testing, blood testing, MRIs, every test under the sun. And then ultimately, my doctor told me that I was never going to get out of bed again, that this was it, that this was my life. And I was 26 years old at that time. And there is that little thing inside. We are meant for more. And something in me just was like, no, that doesn't make sense. That even in the exhaustion and everything else, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So that began my journey of healing, looking for answers, looking for what was going on. In that, I found the vitamins, the herbs to build my body back. I found an acupuncturist who looked at me and he said, no, you fried your body. You destroyed everything in your body. We've got to heal it. So he was a big help. And then that's when I found yoga. And as the universe would have it, I walked into my first yoga class barely. I was up a little bit more because of the acupuncture and the herbs and everything, the vitamins. And the woman whose class I was taking and the woman who ran that studio both had experienced what I had, which nowadays they'll call it autoimmune crashing, chronic fatigue. It was just adrenal fatigue. It was just my entire body was just shot. Both of those women had worked in New York City in the retail industry and had gone through the exact same thing.
Mm.
So they were there to really guide me. So I went into yoga, and that was where I began to understand that I did have that my heart did want to be doing something here, and that I was doing the complete opposite. I was honoring everybody else, but I was not honoring myself, and I was depleting myself every moment of every day. So through that, yoga was where I began to move within, get into my heart space, my soul space. What do I want? What am I being called for? And
Mhm.
it was a transition out. I ended up going into my yoga teacher training. I began to move out of doing events. I did do a few on the side to make some money as I started to build up in yoga. And interestingly enough, I went into acting because that was what my heart was calling me for. So I moved into acting and doing acting on camera and commercial, and I moved into commercial voiceover. And I went through a period of time of doing a lot of that, which was the first time that instead of coming from here, it came from here. Like, what do I want to do? I want to play. So that was sort of that first transition into what brought me into this trajectory of my life.
Wow. It's Thank you for sharing all that. In retrospect, were there signs? Because this is definitely a common theme, particularly among women, giving, 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 giving until there's nothing left. And now it wasn't like a subtle whisper you got, it was a major catastrophe that took you down a different path.
Yeah.
To the listeners, are there signs along the way that may have been the whispers that you just didn't hear?
I'm going to say yes. And so at that time, I was so unconscious and so coming from here that I didn't understand the whispers. I didn't understand the subtleties. But I will fast forward to a little bit later. Now I'm tapped in. Now I'm married. I've been with my then husband for 10 years. I have my stepkids that I've been with for 10 years. Life is grand. I think everything is all set. And then one day that world went crashing down. My now ex-husband betrayed me in like the most unspeakable of ways. And when everything and legal consequences for him, I mean, the whole thing, very public because we had businesses where we used to live. Um,
Mhm.
and when that happened, that's when I said to myself, I didn't say, I didn't go into victim and say, why did this happen to me? But I kept saying, how did this happen? How did this happen? Because here I am connected and moving. So,
Mm.
in order for me to come, I don't even want to say come back from that, in order for me to move from that and move into, meant for something better, that's when I did a timeline. I actually went back to the first moment that we had met and I did a timeline. And
Mhm.
in that timeline, there were so many things that I ignored. I mean, like so many things, so many red flags that I either shut down my intuition on, I would ask him about, and he would say, deny, turn it to me like that I was crazy. And I literally started to feel that way. In that marriage, I got smaller and smaller and smaller because I'm thinking, I guess I must be just jealous, or I must be crazy, or I must be this, or I must be that. Didn't listen to my intuition, saw what I wanted to see. And so in that time, I will say that there were absolutely signs and whispers, and it didn't have to get as big as it did if I trusted myself and I trusted my intuition instead of trusting what somebody else was telling me was the truth. So yeah.
So powerful. Um, Thank you for that. And it's so true. We have all the answers inside, but it feels like we don't always listen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and here I was years and years and years into living these principles and living this truth. But there was a blind spot. I had a blind spot. And, you know, and I do believe that is what happens. We are here meant to be more. We're here to continually expand and continually grow and continually experience more abundance and joy and peace. And so in that, you know, my soul, my spirit is continuing to do that. And then the container just wasn't going to allow it. The container of my marriage, the container of my life. So it had to explode. And
Mhm.
I understand that now. Any blind spots are going to come up. And now that's actually part of my practice, part of my daily spiritual practice, my daily mindfulness practice. I ask the universe, if there's a blind spot, let me see it gently, but let me see it. If there's something that's not for me, take it away. Like I pull that in now because I'm so aware that we can build these amazing lives and businesses. It doesn't mean that they're on a steady foundation. And if they're not,
Mhm.
as we continue to take in more, and especially those of us who are moving, well, I would say anybody, but especially when we're actively moving towards bettering ourselves and being in that, it's going to happen. So it's going to be shown to us. So now I just ask, show me gently, and I just keep my eyes open for it, to be aware in the moment, make the shift, make the change, understand where it's coming from, versus building this up in a container that is too small and one day is going to go like that.
Mhm. So good. I love that you proactively ask to be shown to, to the blind spot, because sometimes either consciously or subconsciously, knowing or unknowingly, we may know about the blind spot, but we're just not able to see it.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful that you proactively ask for it.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to read something you wrote here and I want to read it because I don't want to mess up how you worded it, but I thought it was really powerful. But so your teachings are rooted in the understanding that we are powerful beyond measure. We create our lives from the inside out. And when we move within, we're able to dismantle what's holding us back. We then free ourselves to live fully, intentionally, and create meaningful lives. What might that process look like? The dismantling process.
So my belief is that our true self, our authentic self, our heart, our spirit, our soul, what your higher self, whatever your word is, whatever anyone's word is for that, I believe that I'll call it authentic self, is, when I say powerful beyond measure, it has access to infinite potential and possibility, right? We're tapped into the universe. And I believe that there's nothing to add, there's nothing to fix for us to be in our power. We just need to remove what's in the way. We need to dismantle what's in the way. And what's in the way can be self-limiting beliefs, not truth, but beliefs that we've taken on that are limiting us. Um, Unprocessed pain, unprocessed trauma, negative emotions, ideas. We these things, they physically lock into our body, and we resonate at a lower level than the truth of ourselves, which is a high vibration. And what we believe to be true is what will appear to be true. And that's where I say, as within, so without. We create them from within. And science even backs this up, that we manifest in our lives a direct reflection of what is our inner world. So whether that be a belief that says, I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, like whatever that belief is, will outpicture for us. And when we hold energy, so let's just say, well, I'll just go back to my situation. So if I had held on with my ex-husband, if I held on to that anger and that vengeance and that negativity, if I held on to that, I'm now resonating at that level. So I'm hurting myself far more than he or anybody could hurt me, because there is no way that I can bring in infinite and a lot of joy and peace and power and prosperity if I am resonating at anger and vengeance. It just doesn't work. I'll be
Mhm.
drawing to myself experiences that match my vibrational level, anger and negativity being low. So when I say to dismantle, and I'm a big believer in a daily practice, a daily mindfulness practice. I call it a daily spiritual practice, to where every day we're spending some time, be it, and for me, it's a combination of everything: meditation, journaling, spiritual reading, reading reading truth, I'll call it, to where we are making conscious connection to ourself. And I believe that we then allow ourself, our higher self, our authentic self to speak to us. And then we just know it appears. We start to see. So and I believe that we start with the vision, right? What do we want to create? What do we want to bring into our life? Not from here, as you know, like I said, I have that issue, but from my heart. And so first there's getting into that space, creating that connection. And there's plenty of tools and practices to get that to come forth. So we have our vision, we hold our vision. And as we're moving to our vision, what is in the way will come up. It will. And I feel that having that bit of time in your daily practice, it allows it to come up easily. And on top of that, going to your yoga class, your sound healing, whatever is there, what's in the way will come up. And then you have the opportunity to, as I say, heal what's in the way. And now you've just freed yourself to bring in what it is that you want to bring in. Does that make sense?
It does. So well said. And I couldn't agree more. And I love that you're speaking to your vibration, that your energy is attracting, because our thoughts are always just a direct, our external world is such a direct reflection of our thoughts and what's going on in there.
Yeah. And I'll always say to people, if they're not sure, I'll say, well, just look at your outer world and what's not working for you. Are you not having a relationship that you want to be having? Or is your bank account not where you want it to be? Is your job not wherever it is that is not where you want it to be? Start there and look there. So if your bank account isn't where it is, there's some belief in lack and limitation or worthiness. And, but you just look at that and then you ask. And I'll always say this to people. You can ask. You can ask in your journal, ask yourself, ask the universe, like, why is my bank account low? What do I need to know? And we will get our answers. That wisdom is within. Our higher self, the universe, wants us to live big, bold, vibrant lives that we love living. And I think that, and I do think that's really important, because I think sometimes people think that, we just have this belief that we've picked up, like life is hard and I just have to get through. And even if we don't realize it in this direct, blunt words, there is something in the back of our head that thinks that, because life can be challenging and it can be difficult. But
Mhm.
when we understand that life is for us and that we are meant for something great and greater, when we understand that, we do that little bit of a switch in our mind to, instead of looking at what's going wrong, instead of looking at how things are bringing us down, we do that little switch to, like, oh, okay, well, what am I being told? What do I need to look at in order to bring this in?
Mhm. And that's such a nice place for people to start. So for the listener that's saying, that might work for you, but my life is a mess right now, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. But as you just said, picking one area of your life and kind of taking a peek at it, if it's not where you want it to be, what are the thoughts around that area?
Yeah, exactly. If it seems so everything's wrong, okay, well, let's take a breath. And what's the what's the thing that's most at the top? What's the thing that's most keeping you up awake at night? Take that, and again, give yourself, God, even if you start with 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, start with that each day. And I'll always tell, especially my busy people, be it busy in business or busy moms, um, schedule it in to your day the same way that you would schedule your important client meeting, your child's doctor's appointment. Schedule that time in for yourself. 10 minutes to begin with. If it's 10 minutes, go in the bathtub or in the bathroom
Mhm.
for 10 minutes, whatever your situation is, take 10 minutes out to start the dialogue with yourself, to start moving in. And life will become much easier. It'll begin to flow. Your answers will come. You begin moving out what's in the way, and we move into that natural state where things manifest wonderfully for us.
I love it. It's such a nice starting point for somebody. Why do you think it's so hard for people to accept the concept that we are limitless? It's very easy to accept our downfalls or negatives, or to recall all the times things didn't work out or a mistake. But why do you think it's so hard for people to embrace the idea that maybe I am limitless?
That's a great question. I would have to say what comes to me is that we really do believe what our mind can wrap around. Like what our mind can conceive is much easier for us to believe to be true. And in understanding that we're limitless, we have to go beyond what our mind can conceive. And I think that's probably or possibly where the challenge is for a lot of us. And I think that, to move from that, and I'm just thinking of myself because I had gone
Mhm.
through that, and I certainly was coming from, like I said, my head, what can I do? What should I do? What am I good at doing? And I think we shouldn't try to go from where we're sitting here to, okay, everything is infinite and limitless. But maybe we just crack the door open. Maybe we just open to the possibility that it's a little bit bigger. Like if we're in a job that we don't like, or in a relationship that's not, maybe if we just crack the door open to the fact that something bigger is waiting for us. Like maybe we just step into that, and then that opens us and opens, and it's like it's this gradual unfolding. I would say would,
Mhm.
as we're talking about it, would be the way to go, because I do think it's hard. It's hard to conceive something that is beyond the scope of our brain, what we can conceive. It's hard to imagine sometimes. Even I know I love to just go outside and look up at the stars, and I love to really become fascinated in that and think, wow, like just get into the wow of that, because that is
Mhm.
certainly something that is, when you think of how vast they tell us the universe is and how many universes go on beyond that, it's, you just think about that for a moment, and like let it become amazing and fascinating to you.
Yeah, this is so much great information you're sharing. And I think for the audience, just to be open to the possibilities here, and the possibilities of what could change, even with some of these very simple steps that you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to say, all right, I'm going to block off, say, 10 minutes, a really person that's very busy and life's busy, but they're saying, I'm going to block off 10 minutes. What do you think that person should do with that 10 minutes if they say, I'm going to make a change?
So I'm going to say, first and foremost, is have structure. Because as you said, if somebody goes, I'm going to block off 10 minutes, and then they sit there and they're like, let me meditate, close my eyes. No, that's not working. Let me journal. I don't know. This is stupid. It's not going to work. It's really
Mhm.
not going to work. So it's to have some structure. Um, so if it's journaling that you're feeling called to, open up your journal, and just, if you have 10 minutes, write for 10 minutes. Just write. I'm going to write. Even if you think it's stupid, write that. I'm supposed to write for 10 minutes. This is what I committed to. This is so dumb. This is stupid. Oh God, I have 8 minutes left. Even if you write that, that's great. And show up every day and write for those 10 minutes, and stuff will shift. Now you've created this understanding, you've created this opening for your higher self to speak. So things will start to change. All of a sudden one day you'll be like,
Mhm.
yeah, well, there is something I want to say, or yeah, but this happened today. And what about that? And it just gives you a vehicle. So if it's journaling that you're called to, structure it for that 10 minutes and don't stop. If it's meditation, I have a 5-minute fix is something that I do. I do a 5-minute guided meditation. It's a podcast, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. Begin with a 5-minute meditation. Sit down, go into a 5-minute meditation, take a walk in nature without the headphones, without anything. So, whatever it is that you decide to start doing, just make sure you have an actual structure, that you know what you're going to do, and then you do it. You
Mhm.
do it no matter what you think, you do it and you stay consistent. And then that will then just naturally lead. Then all of a sudden you'll hear something else, or you'll see something else, or you'll say, oh, here's a little book with journal prompts, I'm going to do this, or here's a little course that I'm going to take, and it will guide you. But just make sure that you have I would say to everyone, make sure that you have a structure of something you're going to do in that 10 minutes that's structured.
Mhm. So helpful. That's amazing. I love it. This is so great. This life-changing material. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it truly, truly, truly is. And it can feel daunting and overwhelming when you hear me say, for example, we're powerful beyond belief. We have everything we need. It's like, again, too big to wrap around. But when we start bite-sizing it and we say, okay, I can do a 5-minute meditation every day. I can do 10 minutes of journaling. I can go walk to the end of the road and back without any distractions. When we
Mhm.
start that, we truly begin to layer on and open up to something more and better for us and easier and more joyful.
Yes. And the more you tune into yourself and go within, the next steps, they reveal themselves naturally as you go.
Oh my God, that is my favorite. That's actually one of my taglines, one inspired step at a time. And and again, because I was a type A, I
Mm-hmm.
worked and I muscled and I fought, and I would burn out. I mean, I
Hmm.
literally burned my body out doing it. And even when I moved from that to building something else, I was always tired. I was always burnt out because I was just going and going and going and doing and doing and doing. And then I learned just what you said, the step does reveal itself. So that is my whole thing now, is inspired action.
Hmm.
Tune in, and what am I being nudged to do? What am I being moved to do? And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's going to be out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it's just a simple little something. Um, this was years ago. I was in San Diego and I was in the middle of a conference, and it was break time and everybody was getting together for lunch, and I just needed to get outside. I needed to walk. My head was so full. So it was on the Pacific Coast Highway. There's a little sidewalk, and I was walking up it, and I could see where I wanted to go. There was a place at the top of the hill that I wanted to go. And as I started to walk, I was like, oh no, there's no sidewalk in that last part. I'm like, oh, it's Pacific Coast Highway. Like, what am I going to do? The ocean's off to my left. And so I just kept going. And as I got to the place where I thought the sidewalk was going to stop, all of a sudden I was like, oh, just off to my left, there was a little grassy path. And they had a little grassy, meandering path. So I started on the grassy path, and then I was laughing because I was like, oh, if I just look down this grassy path, it actually looks like it ends in 10 steps. But when I got to that 10th step, it went off to the right and off to the left, and I got safely and easily to my destination. And that became my thing. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't see the path. I just kept walking. Sometimes I couldn't see 10 steps out. Sometimes I couldn't see beyond 2 steps. But the next step for me to get to where I wanted to go always appeared. And that has become my mantra. So it's so funny that you said that, because that has absolutely become my mantra. Take those steps, keep your eyes open, follow, and then follow that inspired action.
So good. So we don't need to know the how. The how will be revealed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, we never need to know the how. And that, I always look at that and I say, like, look at creation, look at anything that you want in creation. Look at, I'll point over my shoulder, look at nature behind me,
Mhm.
look at anything. We don't know. We don't even know how, most of us don't even know how our bodies are breathing for us and functioning for us, and the blood flows. We don't. The intelligence that created our body, that created the trees, that created nature, that intelligence is the intelligence that we're tapping into to design our lives. So that intelligence is going to know how to bring the dream to fruition. So we absolutely don't have to know the how. I think if we just recognize that what we want for ourselves, what our dreams are, that intelligence that created all of it wants it for us. It
Oh,
will
so
conspire. It will put the right people into our path. And yes, absolutely. There are times we're going to have to be uncomfortable because the magic isn't in your comfort zone. So, and discomfort can be making a phone call, asking for something, speaking in front of people, whatever it is. So you have to be willing to go outside of your comfort zone. But that intelligence will lay out the path for you and you just have to walk down it. That's it.
that is so good. And I love the reminder that getting outside your comfort zone is uncomfortable, but it's
Yeah,
necessary.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
We
And
think
I
our
believe,
go ahead.
I do believe if you're not willing to go outside of your comfort zone, I believe something is going to happen to bring you outside of your comfort zone because your spirit, your soul, your higher self, your authentic self wants to continually be growing and going. So if you're not going to move with that, it's going to call you to it because that is what we're here for. We are here to learn and to grow and to experience more of all of the best that life has to offer. So we got to expand our containers.
Yeah, so you can either notice the subtle whisper and act on it, or you may get that not so subtle, unpleasant
Yeah.
whisper.
I call it the moment that brings us to our knees, and life as we know it is never the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and where do the spiritual laws play into all of this? How do you utilize those in your coaching?
So I love the spiritual law. When I was doing
Mm,
my yoga, very much of it was, I'll call it mysticism. It was just something that we knew. What I love about spiritual law, and that's why I also went into spiritual life coaching, is because though I believe it and have that mystical feel, there is science behind things now. Science is now showing. And so spiritual law, they just like we have gravity, there are spiritual laws. And I always say to people, you don't have to believe me, but be open and then try it out for yourself, right? Like
mhm,
try it on for yourself. Don't believe me. In fact, don't take me for my word, but try it on and play with it and look at what happens. And that's so spiritual law, just like gravity, it's something that you can count on. And as
mhm,
you get comfortable and you learn to embody these spiritual laws, you know you can depend on it. Like you
mhm,
understand that you can depend on it. And I think that that's really, at least for me and for some of my clients or many or all of my clients, it becomes very comforting to know that we can rely on those things and to build our lives, to go into the darkness, to go into the dark days, and to go into the fire, and to be willing to step outside of the comfort zone. It's like to understand spiritual law. It's like, oh, okay, I'm being called to take the leap of faith. You're not blindly
mhm.
jumping off a cliff when you're in this work and you're doing your daily practice and you're understanding spiritual law. You're absolutely not blindly jumping off, but you know when it's time, and then you know you can trust because you know the way that it works. So it's I think it's really can be very helpful to understand that so you don't feel like you're just blindly going on what somebody like me might say they feel to be true.
Right. And there is a science to all this. It's all a proven science. Is there a one particular spiritual law that you feel like sharing that you think is really relatable for the audience? Something they may not even realize or that they could just apply to their daily life to
I would
remember.
say it's that law of vibration. I think the
Mhm.
law of vibration is so important because everything is energy.
No.
So when I talk about limiting beliefs, there's actually an energy to that. There's a vibration to that. So when we understand that everything is vibration and that we are going to call to us what's a vibrational match, we can hear ourselves say something. We can judge someone or say something negative, and we can go, oh, well, that's going to bring me something I don't want. So I'm not going to do that. I'm instead going to say something or think something or do an action that's going to bring me towards what I do want. So I think that law of vibration can be just a very
Mhm.
simple way to catch ourselves when we're doing something that's going to bring us something that we don't want, and understanding that we absolutely bring to us and manifest what we are a vibrational match for. And the beauty is, we get to choose our vibrational match. It's underneath it all is very high. And so if we choose to say something negative, if we choose to be in anger or in vengeance, we're choosing a low vibration. We're
Mhm.
choosing to bring in, and I know that can sound harsh, but we're essentially choosing to bring in something that matches it, or we can choose to show up with kindness and respect. And this is beginning with self-kindness,
Mhm.
self-respect, self-love. We'll begin there. And then we'll call that in. So the law of vibration, I would say, is one of my, it's becoming one of my favorite go-tos.
Beautiful. And it all comes down to self and a choice.
Yeah, it does. It does. And that can, some people love that and some people hate it. But, and I was having this conversation the other day about how many of us were brought up that someone else is going to save us, whether it be the fairy tales where the guy rides in and everybody goes off happily, or if you have a parent who was taken care of or would come in, like we're brought up that someone else is going to save us.
Mhm.
And some people love that and some people don't. But the truth is, that's not true. No one is going to save us. And if it may appear that way in the moment, but it's an appearance, it's not truth, it's not going to last. What is sustainable is when we recognize that we are going to save ourselves. We are our own heroes. We are the ones directly responsible for our lives. When we realize that, then we're truly empowered.
Oh, Stacy, this is so, so, so good. Um, is there anything that I'm not asking you about or we haven't touched upon that you think would be helpful for the listeners?
I guess I'm just going to say one spiritual practice that's popping up, because I am
Mm,
talking about, I've talked about it without, I've talked around it.
okay.
An amazing practice to go into is forgiveness, and it's spiritual forgiveness. So when we are in that space of being mad at somebody, being angry, we've been hurt, we've been betrayed, we hold on to that energy and we think if we let go of that energy that we're letting them off the hook, but it's not true. So spiritual forgiveness doesn't say that what that person did was right. It doesn't justify their actions. It doesn't let them off the hook. It doesn't say you're going to bring that person into your life. It doesn't say any of that. It just says, I am going to free myself from this anger, from this negativity. I'm freeing myself from it. So that goes into that law of vibration that we're talking about. It goes into that empowerment. So I think the final thing I would say is, most of us have someone, many someones, even ourselves,
Hmm.
maybe your higher power, maybe God, like most of us are holding on to something. And I would say that the practice of spiritual forgiveness is amazing and ongoing, right? So this is what I do. So I'll be practicing my forgiveness and I'm going along my merry way, and then there's a block, and then I ask, and I'm like, oh, I'm still holding on to a little something from from a long time ago that I
Hmm.
thought I dealt with, but it's layers and layers and layers. So I would say practicing spiritual forgiveness is something that can be part of that daily practice regularly, especially in the beginning, to truly free yourself of that energy and allow yourself to rise up in that vibration.
Yeah. So good. So helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of this, for being here.
Oh,
Um, where can people find you? And also, I know you have provided access to a free gift as well. And your website has so many tools. So tell us a little bit
yes.
about where people can
Um,
find you and what they'll find.
so staceypaige.com, staceypaige.com. I do a weekly blog which is all about spiritual law, tips, tools, practices. Those are going to be in there each week. I have that 5-minute fixed guided meditation. So the meditation is always aligned with whatever practice or story I'm talking about. Um, so that you can sign up for that newsletter on my website. When you sign up for that newsletter, there is a 15-minute guided meditation that you'll receive and will come to you. Um, and there is something else. I don't know where to find it on my website, but you could always email me. So we talked about those limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
And there is a way to uncover those limiting beliefs and then to change those limiting beliefs. So if anybody's interested, I would say just shoot me a direct email, which you can get from my website, and I can send over. It's a video that I talk you through, and then I'm big about transformation. So we talk about it, and then I take you through an experience to uncover and rewrite some of those limiting beliefs and talk about how to implement them. So it's somewhere on my website, but I honestly don't know where it is. I have a link to it, so I'm happy to send that link to anybody who is interested. And I do have on there. There are some courses, bite-sized courses that will structure that daily practice. It's around different topics. The one that is just coming out now is on manifestation. It's self-paced, gives structure, gives guidance for how to actually understand, embody, and use the tools to make sustainable change in your life right now.
Mhm. I think that's great. I think everybody should go check out your website, because a nice place to start to get their feet wet and small pieces that they can digest. And then as they're ready for the next step.
Absolutely. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wonderful. Stacey Paige, thank you so much for being here
Oh,
today.
my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, wonderful. And to all the listeners, thank you for being here for another episode of We Are Meant for More. See you next time.